Hello everyone, and welcome back to this Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons Specter PvP video. First and foremost, the build that I'm running. I am running Shadow Arts, Trickery, and of course Specter, top, middle, and bottom. I decided to record some Specter gameplay just before the beta finished to showcase some more single target healing within an unranked environment. This build is very focused on helping one or two particular allies and using Siphon not only as a very strong barrier tool in order to prevent someone from going down, but in the case that someone does go down, I can now use this F1 to get a really strong ranged resurrection ability on that downed ally, and it becomes extremely useful. So we're coming here on midpoint, and basically what I just try to do is just keep applying barrier. As a single target healer and a barrier healer at that, with having such consistent applications of your main function, there's very little downtime. You can always be applying barrier, always applying heals, boons, etc., but particularly barrier. In the case that you are alone, maybe there is slightly more downtime because you have to get places. But then we have it was a 3v1, was really easily able to be won. An interesting thing about this build is I started to realize how useful the combination skill on this weapon set of Scepter and Offhand Dagger is, because it's not only barrier application, it is a heal. So it's your strongest heal on your kit, other than the traits which interact with Shadow Step heals. So here we're on mid. There's this other Specter. This is a little Specter v Specter gameplay. I am not a damage build whatsoever. My abilities are not for damage. My talents and equipment, however, I've played PvP and I know how to at least hold my own. So I'm really just trying to, burn the points off on the board so that they don't decap it. Sadly, I forgot about the stealth interaction and how if you're stealthed, you will lose progress. So that was just me just not being a thief main and forgetting about that. I probably should not have. Then here we go into Shadow Shroud. Still trying to get used to the name. And just auto-attacking. Here we have an ally come on. Sadly, the Shadow Shroud does end there because I was like, I have backup. And thankfully, some more backup here. I'm really just holding on point. Interestingly, with this game, and why I love unranked, and how it's different from ranked, is that, at least with the betas in unranked, the games feel so much more comprehensive. They feel like I can take a breather while also still understanding what's going on. I'm not just being bombarded by 5 skills all at once by one target, and I have a full bar of conditions. That's why I really loved these betas, because I feel like the balancing with End of Dragons Elite Specs is really, truly the balance I would love to see more of across the game. Over the years, of course, balance and power creep continues to be prevalent. So it's been a lovely little mix-up with End of Dragons Elite Specs. But here we have the Druid start getting targeted by this Specter. The Specter didn't seem to be doing a whole lot of damage. It was mostly just like poking and trying to bleed me out. Here I decide to start to go to another fight because I'm like, hey, this build relies on having allies around me. And this is when I really start to try to focus on targeting and changing targets on my allies. Interesting thing about this playstyle is that this healing is very methodical. You have to think about it. It's not just like any other healing in this game where there's no real thought into this, into healing. You kind of just plop the healing down in a location. The most you really think about is the area in which you place it. This is not only about the area you're in and having to defend yourself because you don't have a lot of that support. You really are a pure healer for yourself. And for your allies, you don't have a whole lot of tanking access. You're thinking about that. You're thinking about enemy positioning, and you're also thinking about ally positioning, and not only ally positioning, who you are going to focus on. And because this movement in this game is so fast-paced, you have to be on your toes. And I have found that Specter single target healing is some of the most skill-based healing in the game because of so many factors compiled into one. One reason why area of effect healing is so easy is because you don't have to think necessarily all the time about your positioning or line of sighting. All you have to think about is if the AoE will go through a certain object, or the circle is so large enough that it will easily get an ally. Oftentimes line of sight with area of effect isn't that big of a deal, though it can be in some situations. Not totally going to discredit that. But we are still in the lead, and it feels like this unranked is a little bit slower, but this is honestly a slower match. I think is good to at least get used to the idea of single target healing. Using the ambush skill. The ambush skill on the Scepter when you are stealthed is your other only pure strong single target healing ability, not just barrier application. It is the straight up heal. Using my F1 skill to burst a whole bunch of barrier on the druid. One thing I will say about the Grandmaster that allows your F1 to resurrect. Talking about balance, I do think that if you successfully resurrect someone from the downstate using the F1, if you use an F1 on the downstate body when you have that trait, the F1 ability will go on its full cooldown, because it's only like a 12-second cooldown. If you use it on an ally, it cuts in half. But because the res is so strong, I would much prefer to see that be like, you have dedicated that to be a really strong res skill. If you res someone with it, it goes on its full cooldown, because res is super, super strong in this game, and I want to be a little bit wary of that. So that'd be my recommendation, but overall, I do go down here. I do get back up, which was wonderful to see. I start using my shadow steps. I start using my, it's not shelter. I already forgot the name of it. My 9th skill to get invisibility. They go down here. I use my F1, get them back up a little bit. They are an elementalist, so they start mist forming away. They're already at 80% health because of the F1, so it is a much easier time getting the res. You don't have to spend as much time dedicating, kneeling down and pressing F to get them back up. It's much faster. Additionally, if you use your 9th ability, your area that stealths everyone, and you have a trait for it, you will begin to revive stealth allies. So it can be a really strong resurrector in PvP. I have seen really strong res plays, but in addition to that, in open world and in particularly PvE environments, with strike missions and in raids, really strong res potential on Specter. In terms of single target, I still think Necro has really strong AoE res potential with Transfusion, Well of Blood, and Signet of Life, or Signet of Undeath. They are very, very strong abilities that I would not mind seeing some slight tweaks here and there. I do think Necro should keep its place of being the niche strong resurrector, but Specter, it's got that single target potential. Here I'm swapping in a short bow. Playing the Spectre, I really have not played a lot of my short bow, just because the initiative reduction and just focusing on applying barrier is really important. But overall, this game has been pretty, like, chill. It's been very even keel, I would say. There's not many, like, fast-paced blitz situations going on, which I kind of prefer, and I really enjoyed this. I think the one thing about playing Spectre in this round, I was like, you know what? I actually came away from this match not only feeling good because we won, but also feeling like I understood what was happening in this match. I was playing a support. I could actually understand what was happening in the battlefield. I was a little bit more conscious of like who I'm around, always making sure that I am the +1 in a fight, or, you know, even be that 3v2, 3v1. Might not necessarily be needed all the time, but definitely getting in the mindset of always being around allies is very important, because unlike core guardians, Specters focus on healing allies while not healing themselves all the time. You have a couple self-sustain abilities by using your F1 on an enemy. However, it's not the most reliable, and it's only a single packet of barrier. We're gonna get this F1. I have stealth to them with my 9th skill. I still forgot what that that skill is called, but it came in really handy. Really, really handy. One thing I will say about Shadow Shroud is that I think Shadow Shroud, I do think the F1, if you siphon an ally, should give you some shadow force. I think that is a big con to this spec, is it's really difficult to get into that shroud. Granted, when you're in the shroud, you are quite tanky. So there is a little bit of give and take in terms of like it almost feels like Celestial Avatar, but an even better version of Celestial Avatar, because Celestial Avatar, you don't have a secondary health bar. You just take damage. But granted, while you're in it, your abilities don't feel as strong as they could be. But I think if the F1 on an ally gave you a little bit of Shadow Force, that would allow you to get into your Shadow Shroud just a little bit better. So I could definitely see Shadow Shroud get a little bit of an increase, a little bit of love to the Force generation to get into Shroud. But I could also see maybe some slight buffs here and there. 5% increases, 10% increases to the healing, to maybe a damage, or like adding an extra stack of a condition. I don't want to see anything get too out of realm of logistics, but that was the game. Thank you everyone so much for coming. Like, comment down below your thoughts about the Specter. If you'd like to pre-order End of Dragons, I have links down below. And my healing, I wonder if I show it. It's pretty good, but thank you everyone so much for coming, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye everyone. Mwah.